Since 1983, FAME has helped business and education work for Maine. Contact the authority, the Finance Authority of Maine. You're watching Mainebiz Sunday, Maine's business news source.
We're back to discuss Maine's nonprofit sector with Scott Schnapp, Executive Director of the Maine Association of Nonprofits, Megan Williams, Executive Director of Hearty Girls Healthy Women in Waterville, Nesin, Medical Director of Health Access Network in Lincoln, and Ari Solotoff, Executive Director of the Portland Symphony Orchestra. Welcome back, everybody. Scott, we were talking during the break about some kind of the framework and some of the guiding principles that your organization uses to evaluate nonprofits and how to make that selection for who the ones are exhibiting the most innovation. Tell us about that.
Well, the awards process is built on this framework that the Maine Association of Nonprofits has developed called Guiding Principles and Practices for Nonprofit Excellence in Maine. And it's a framework of tools, resources, and services to help nonprofits look at the management practices and what are healthy management practices to be able to institute in their organizations so that they have effective mission impact. Okay. And when what we're looking for in our selection process are organizations that are innovative and creative in terms of addressing their management challenges. And then we have a two-stage process where staff vets the applications, and then past award winners and advisory council members of the Maine Association of Nonprofits make the ultimate selection process. And I think you heard from all of our awardees, you know, about innovation and creativity, and that really is at the core of what we're looking to highlight here.
I got to say, I like that too, because it's not a feel-good thing. It's not, this one looks good and feels good. It's good, sound practices that are going forward based on innovative principles. I mean, I like that. And that's what we're going to get into now. How you've used some of those, not only you, but other nonprofits that you all know too in this universe. Make the case now for why nonprofits are so important to Maine's economy. Why is it important to have them here? All right, let's start with you.
Well, in our case, we think a lot about how the Portland Symphony contributes to quality of life. What does it mean to live in Portland? Okay. What does it mean to live in Maine and have access to this incredibly rich cultural organization that is part of the fabric of not only Portland, but the state of Maine? We think that's a critical part of what it means to be a vital and vibrant community that attracts the kinds of professionals and individuals, both of all sectors of the economy, that are going to help drive innovation and top-line results going forward.
Do you think there's a return on investment in quality of life?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's part of where I think Maine seems to be heading, and the more that we can build on each other's strengths in that regard, whether it's from an environmental standpoint or healthcare or the social service sector, we all work together to contribute to that quality of life.
Right out of the Brookings Institute, right? That's where we're headed. Well said. Okay, Noel, how about you? Help make the case.
Well, in our case, in healthcare, as I spoke before about a sustainable model of primary care, I was in private practice for 20 years. And in the current system and the way that healthcare is reimbursed, small private practices aren't sustainable, especially in rural areas. And so just for providing healthcare, community health center model or other such models, rural health centers, which are all nonprofit models, are critical to sustaining the kind of access that people need in order to live healthy lives, or as healthy a life as possible. In addition, in a community like ours, we're one of the largest employers. We've been able, through some very innovative work by our administrative team, to build a $5 million building in the community. We employ 115 people. We provide we provide great benefits for those people. And for their families, and it helps to sort of revitalize that stretch of business district in Lincoln, Maine. Yeah, and healthcare services, hospitals in particular. I mean, it's just one of our biggest employers in the state. So, and they're nonprofits. I mean, it's clearly clearly something that's very important. Megan, how about you? How can you help make the case for why nonprofits are important to the economy overall?
I think nonprofits are important because they're providing services that others are not, and often to underserved populations. In the case of Hearty Girls, you know, we're working with, arguably, you know, I don't think anybody would argue with it, the future. I mean, we're working with kids, empowering them with critical thinking skills, empowering them through activism, and empowering them through connection with community. And I think that as a whole will strengthen our communities here in Maine. The girls we work with are, the future business leaders, the future politicians, the future teachers.
Yeah.
So if we can give them a good base of skills and information and tools that they can use moving forward.
So good investment in the future.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Okay, I buy it.
Well, I don't know if we always realize what the subsidiary impacts of all of these little investments are. Yeah. Take, for example, our musicians. Our musicians are not full-time employees of the symphony. They dedicate their lives to teaching in schools and to providing chamber music coaching and to working at the universities. So when you look at the ripple effect, it's not just the organization, it's the people who we support and therefore their ability to further their own mission and their own impact.
And I guess, if we're going to pile on here, I'll just add that they serve as incredible laboratories for civic engagement and leadership development. I mean, I think Maine, more than any place in the country, has an incredibly active and engaged community-based, I mean, there's just, and nonprofits serve as kind of the laboratory for individuals to get involved in causes that they care about and to actually make a difference.
Well, yes, and I've heard, and I'm sure you have too, that people say, oh gosh, not another nonprofit. Everything in Maine is a nonprofit. There are over 5,000, 82,000 employees, so it's a big part of our economy. But during the downturn, as with any kind of industry sector, the weaker ones kind of fall out. The ones with and what makes a nonprofit fail during a downturn? Is it mission problems? Is it financial problems? Scott, what are you seeing from your membership?
I think it's really, I think it's very individualized. I mean, I think there are definitely subsector issues in the human service sector, which makes up over 50% of the nonprofit sector. It's more of a systemic issue that certainly it's happening in Maine, but it's a national issue. It's federal dollars that flow through the state that then are contracted with community service providers for services for the developmentally disabled, mental health, and a variety of other services. So that's a larger systemic issue that I think we've really got to wrap our heads around. When you get beyond that, you get into a whole other range of nonprofits, and I think then it really becomes a little more entrepreneurial, and I think more individualized based on the organization and its culture, its leadership, its engagement, its mission impact, and kind of the broader kinds of things. So in those cases, I think there's not gloom and doom out in the nonprofit sector other than in the human service side of things. I mean, if you look at the Health Access Network and you look at some of the stories here, we're actually seeing that the nonprofit sector is really rising up to the challenge and figuring out how to right size itself, how to hold mission first, and to be able to move forward in maybe a different way than it has in the past.
I want to ask, let me follow up on that about funding sources too, and maybe y'all can kind of jump in on that too. 2006 actually was a survey that the Maine Association of Nonprofits Commission noted that nonprofits with budgets less than $5 million reported getting 61% of their funding from federal, state, and local governments, 15% from individuals, 12% from fees like ticket sales, and 9% from foundations. That was 2006. That was like eons ago in economic terms.
The good old days.
Has that mix changed? And are nonprofits having to move more into that entrepreneurial fee-for-service kind of realm? What are you seeing out there with your own nonprofit and your colleagues?
It's certainly true for our nonprofit, and I think other nonprofits in healthcare, that the fee-for-service makes up the lion's share of our revenues. And in fact, we know that our success depends on the number of visits that we can generate on a daily basis, regardless of what kind of service we're providing. That happens to work out very nicely for the community because access is what it's all about in providing health care. So access and revenue go hand in hand in that way. In addition, in healthcare, although we are a nonprofit, and I think this award will help, sort of make that point more clearly to our community. Lots of times people don't see medical practices as a nonprofit. And so raising money privately for a medical practice, which is what people view a health center as being, is not such an easy thing to do. And so you really do become dependent on fee-for-service, for the revenue we can generate from the services we provide, and on sort of the leadership team being facile and nimble at responding to the exigencies of the moment.
We're gonna have to wrap right there, but I'm gonna continue this discussion. I'm gonna keep you around, and we're gonna do an afterthought segment that we show on the web. So I want to talk more about that and kind of the opportunities that may exist out there during a downturn for nonprofits. That kind of merger piece, are there opportunities? And I also want to come back and ask that question: tax-exempt nonprofits competing with tax-paying for-profits.